Sports Radio 610 presents In the Loop with John Lopez and Landry Locker.
All right, Lopez says the Texans would be settling. When is it okay to settle? 713-572-4610. When is it okay to settle? And it doesn't have to mean relationships or anything like that. When is it okay to settle? Do you just settle on what you want to eat?
I was thinking restaurants.
Do you sometimes settle on a vacation? Do you sometimes settle on an activity? When is it okay to settle? And would it be okay for the Texans to settle at the most important position? The OG says the Texans would be settling if they took a quarterback. Explain.
I think it's almost by definition, that they would be settling. So Adam Schefter on his podcast yesterday had Scott Fitterer on there, and
Who is the
general manager for the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
And they went into a bunch of stuff, but there were about 5 minutes of it that was really, really interesting. And then Adam Schefter reported on the podcast that the Texans were, quote, very close to completing the deal for the number 1 overall pick.
I remember that week getting word the Houston Texans were very close to completing a trade for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, you'd have to ask Houston where they were at with that. I haven't talked to Nick directly, so I'll let them answer on their end.
Well, I'm answering for you. I'm telling you, at one point in time, they were very close to it, getting that pick, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just very happy that Brian and I have an agreement and we can get number 1 done.
So he indicated to the point that the deal might have even been in place. And then there was a separate story about Federer that said once he got word about this, I think he was driving in from dinner or the office or something, and he immediately stopped everything and called the Bears and said, "Hold everything, hold on, and we can sweeten the deal." And Nick Caserio was kind of left holding the bag. I mean, not kind of. I mean, he was. So the Texans had a deal in place, according to Schefter. They had, were very close, according to Schefter. Federer didn't really exactly, dispute any of that. Just didn't name the Texans by name.
Fitterer.
I said Fitterer.
Fitterer is great.
Yeah.
Might be the GOAT.
And then there's this quote. I come back to Charlotte on Monday, and it's not Tuesday, and I get word that kind of through secondhand sources that Chicago might be trying to move the pick right then. There might be teams interested, and as you all know, things are happening behind the scenes. That's the point where I got most nervous, and I was like, oh, my God. So I jump on the phone. I call Mr. Tepper. I call Ryan and said, hey, listen, don't do anything. Give us an opportunity here to jump back in. That alone, first of all, are we believing that?
Yes.
Figgy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ryan Poles said it too.
Yeah, we're believing
Ryan
that.
Poles said it too. Yeah, the Texans tried to trade to the number 1 pick. I feel safe in saying that.
And felt like they had a deal in place. By definition, assuming that quarterback is Bryce Young, they would be settling on another quarterback.
This is true.
If they draft number 2.
Now, is that something that you would be open to? Because John McClain's going to join us at 11, and John McClain is saying, you got to take a quarterback. He wrote like a whole little thing about you got to take a quarterback. And this is the same guy who a few years ago said, you got to take a quarterback. And he ended up eating a damn newspaper.
Right.
So why is that okay for people? Why do people find it okay to settle for a quarterback? Is it just because it's new? Like, is it just because it's new? Like, is this like where you're not happy with something, like a product or something like that? So you just go get something because it's new, and you just say, oh, well, I didn't do much research on it. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter because it's not the old thing and it's something new. Why is it okay at the most important position, knowing the bust rate that we know of quarterbacks? Why is it that people are A, more than willing to settle for quarterbacks, and B, it's so forgivable? Like, it is so forgivable when you miss on a quarterback sometimes. Like, we sit here and we break down every damn thing that these guys do. We're breaking down and making fun of the way that Nick Caserio eats on the air, which, by the way, is a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, everything that we talk about Nick Caserio's vests. We talk about, like, all types of stuff with Nick Caserio. But for whatever reason, whenever these organizations, they make the biggest mistake you can possibly make with your most prized assets and they miss on a quarterback, we very rarely criticize it. It's more forgiven than anything else. If you draft another position, if God forbid you draft a running back and the running back doesn't work out, that's why you don't take a running back. Running backs don't get second contracts. What percentage of quarterbacks in the first round get second contracts? Like if we subscribe to that theory and we said, you don't draft running backs in the first round because they don't get second contracts, what percentage of quarterbacks that get drafted in the first round actually get second contracts? I guarantee you it's significantly less than half, more times than not. But for whatever reason, we're just so forgiving and we're more than willing to just say, just take one, just try, it's worth it. And we don't even take into account that sometimes the opportunity isn't there. And when you do this, you're basically grasping. You're not even grasping for straws. You're grasping for cactus.
It's your second choice. To me, that's the biggest thing that really bothers me, and that's why I want them to trade back more than anything. And that's why I wouldn't be. I'd prefer like a Will Anderson to Tyree Wilson if they do keep the pick, rather than a quarterback, because like I said, by definition, they were moving up to number one. They had the number two pick.
Yeah, they
were moving up to number one for one guy, and now again, maybe this is too presumptive, but I'm guessing that guy was Bryce Young. The Panthers are going to take Bryce Young. That means they're taking at best their second choice at quarterback. I'll give you an example. So I was telling you that Friday I went to Gus's Fried Chicken. Okay, great place on Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to
get the mac and cheese.
I got mac and cheese.
Okay, good for you.
And I wanted to get collard greens as my other side.
Okay.
They were out of collard greens.
Okay.
So they said, "Would you like some French fries?" I said, "Well, I don't know about mac and cheese and French fries, but okay, I'll take some French fries."
So you settled.
The French fries were fine. They were good. But I had my heart set on collard greens.
Yeah.
I settled.
Yeah.
It might not be awful, but it's not what you really want.
But at quarterback, it's not French fries. Like at quarterback, it's almost like settling on
beets.
Something like that. If you settle at quarterback, but for whatever reason, it's just so forgiven. Maybe just because some people think it's worth the shot. It's worth the crack. Okay, I mean, is it? I mean,
but how does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel good if the Texans feel that they need to do that at this point, especially with where we are in the process. Like, look, the process got screwed up because they weren't able to make the trade that you just mentioned that Adam Schefter said, because they weren't able to solidify getting the top guy. But now you don't have to settle. Yeah. And in no other walk of sports or anything like that do we sit here and say, well, they should settle. But for some reason, the most important position, we say that. We say that, like, and then it's like no big deal. Like Jets fans aren't upset that they tried to take Zach Wilson. Like it's the Baker Mayfield, the Sam Darnold. Like you don't hear about it because people just want a quarterback. And even a guy like John McClain, who's an NFL Hall of Famer, is going to join us in 25 minutes. Even John McClain, after sitting there and pounding on the table saying that Rick Smith needed to take an effing quarterback with Blake Bortles and Johnny Manziel as the choices, ate a damn newspaper, and here we are, years down the line, and he's still saying take a quarterback.
Yeah.
He's not saying take C.J. Stroud. He's not saying I love Will Levis. He's not saying, man, Anthony Richardson could be a stud in this system. He's literally just saying take a quarterback. That's all he's saying, and it's crazy to me.
Yeah. It really, once you start thinking about it, it's probably more bothersome in reality than because people are like, oh, hey, people are going to be excited about a quarterback, whether that's C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, whomever, Anthony Richardson, etc. I think a lot of people are going to be excited, but what you need to realize is that's not their first choice. That's not the Texans' first choice, presuming Bryce Young goes number one, which I think is a pretty safe presumption. It just kind of hits me funny, that would happen. Certainly quarterbacks at 10, 12, third round can be stars. I'm not saying that they won't work out. It makes me think even more that they should have more confidence in trading back, building around this position, and getting their quarterback that they really, really want and is their first choice later.
Here's the other thing that needs to be made clear. If the Texans have to go into the season with Davis Mills as starting quarterback, it's not D'Amico's fault. He's not the one who created that. He's not the one who created that adjustment.
Yeah.
So let's make that clear. That was the strawberry smacker who created that. So the strawberry smacker created that, not D'Amico.
I'm sorry, I'm eating my strawberries and blueberries here. So